Hi, I'm Luísa Vilela, and this is another episode of LAIOB Talks.
I can have all the great ideas that I want, but if you don't have people that will challenge those ideas or refine those ideas and then execute those ideas, they're not going to happen.
This time, I'm recording from the United States. I'm at the University of Akron, and our guest is a double alumnus at the University of Akron with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and a JD from the School of Law. Not only that, he was the Dean of the College of Business for more than 2 years. And on the curiosity side, right on the beginning, maybe 15 days into the role, he welcomed one of our groups, and he could personally feel our energy and our passion for higher education. On the business side, he was an entrepreneur owning his own golf agency and then shifting to a more managerial role at IMG. Not only all of that, as if it wasn't enough, he is the 19th president of the University of Akron. Welcome, RJ Nemer.
Hey, Luísa, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to see you, and it's hard to believe it's been so many years since we've known each other.
Yes, I know. Thank you for being here, for taking the time to be here.
Absolutely.
It's an honor for us.
Oh, for me too. Thank you.
RJ, like I said, you didn't follow the traditional academic trajectory. At what point did you realize that you would require a different skill set to run this thing as you'd previously?
Yeah, it's funny, as you talked about in the intro, I have both my undergraduate and law degree from here, and I was fascinated by sports agency and sports representation. So after practicing law for a couple of years, founded my own company, and I ran that, had a couple domestic offices, a couple international offices, and then sold it to IMG, where then I ran golf for them globally. Once my contract was done, and I was thinking about what to do next, I wanted to do something where I gave back, and I loved as a once I became more established in my career, helping some of the younger agents learn. And as luck would have it, the position to be dean opened up here at my alma mater, and in full transparency, when I applied, I never thought I would get it because I didn't have any academic experience. I thought, perhaps I could teach some sports business classes, which would be part-time and allow me to fulfill that need to help and to groom professionals for their careers. So it never, once they made me dean, which was a surprise to me, and I think to many people here at the university, it was a little bit, Luísa, where I had to learn pretty quickly, and I never really consciously thought, okay, I'm pivoting now from business to academia, and what do I need to pick up? I learned as I went along, and I was very fortunate, very blessed that the faculty and staff, particularly in the college business at the time, were patient and willing to teach me a bit as to what it meant to run an academic enterprise.
If you had to say one aspect of your background outside academia that helped you the most into this role, what would it be? The eagerness to learn as you go?
I think you have to be and it's something we say at the university, you want to be a lifetime learner.
Okay.
And even with your students that you bring, many of whom are accomplished businessmen and women. I've been to many of your ceremonies and talked to a lot of your students, and they're all incredibly successful as it is, but they realize they want a lifetime learn. And I think that to your point, one of the things that's important for this role is to realize that while I have done some things or a lot of things in business, I still had things to learn about what it meant to be in academia. So I think that's certainly an important component, and also being and you'll know this, you run a big company, being a good listener and understanding, the needs of people that are coming to you and how you can best service them, which is what we do here as well in education. So I think being a listener is a big part of it.
Do you think that if you had this previous academic background, would change the kind of president you are today? If it come from academia instead of the business world?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I think, and again, being president was a bit of a surprise and a pivot and something I didn't expect. But yeah, trying to combine what I had learned as dean and bringing in some of the principles I had from running my own company and then the IMG vertical, it all helped, I think, to combine and to teach me what skills I could use to better the university. And you probably relate to that. You were in private industry and then started this company. And so I'm sure that you bring things that you learned from your past.
Absolutely.
And then kind of in a way write the script as you go, right? And I did that as an entrepreneur, and I do that still as a bit now, even as the 19th president of the university.
That is incredible. If we think about your career until here, and we think about institution, universities are among the oldest and I dare to say most complex institutions in the world. They talk about innovation, they talk about change constantly, and yet there are many that are deeply resistant to change. Regardless each other, someone has to lead it. Do you find this characterization to be true?
I think that there are some, we need to be innovative, but to your point, you need to be dynamic and you need to adapt and to grow because it's a different world than it was. Even Luísa, in terms of, what COVID did and remote learning or online learning now, students now, I would say, when I was a student here, our competition was, say, local universities, or perhaps for some people, national universities. Well, now you can stay at home in your pajamas and go to school. So the competition is much deeper and wider. And you have to think about what your value proposition is. Pursuing education is costly. And I want to make sure that we give an attractive return on that investment. Very similarly to when students, I think, come to your program. They're spending money to better themselves and then to hopefully allow them to have more opportunities, which pays that investment back to them tenfold. Resistance to change, I think it depends on who I'm dealing with. There are some people that say, well, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way it needs to be. And I think that there is some of that, what I'll call old-fashioned thinking. But here at the university, I think the culture has shifted to realizing that we need to be dynamic, that we need to embrace change, that we need to see that we can't do things the same way we've been doing them for the past decades and expect a different result because it's a different world.
Absolutely.
So yes, I think it's a fair characterization, but I think that we really combat that characterization and are evolving. And a testament is, we had the largest percentage increase in enrollment in our state for this past fall because we are showing that we can be dynamic and different and engaging and innovative and exciting.
Jeff Clem, which works for the University of College of Business, he told me about this increase in new applicants and the numbers and being the first at Ohio, and we're extremely proud of somehow being part of all of this. In general, even though you're the president, you don't make decisions alone. Would you say that the group, the shareholders and of the University of Akron are also open in general for this new line of thinking?
Oh, 100%. I changed a lot of our leadership for the university when I became the president. And, I read a lot, and Jeff would certainly tell you this, or any of the folks who work with me, that I use a lot of quotes or I find inspiration from people. And there's a great quote by Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. He said, I don't hire smart people to tell them what to do. I hire smart people so they can tell me what to do. And so, yes, I surrounded myself by, and you probably do the same thing with running your company, Luísa. You surround yourself with people who have a varied perspective. And, I can have all the great ideas that I want, but if you don't have people that will challenge those ideas or refine those ideas and then execute those ideas, they're not going to happen. So the growth that we realize is not mine. I stand on a lot of shoulders in this role. And I have a great team around me who really pushed that initiative forward and made it a reality.
And when you first stepped into this role, what were the largest gap between your expectations and what actually happened? So you're saying it's not a single person job. There's listening, learning, and being able to change. But what were your expectations at the time and what actually?
I don't know if I had expectations. I realized that when I came into the presidency, having come from the College of Business, even though I was not an academic, I had a degree of credibility within the College of Business because I had some success in business. When I took over as the president, well, now you're dealing with a variety of departments that aren't necessarily, ingrained, or that follow business, or they have different priorities. And so I didn't have quite that instant credibility with them. So it was really about learning, okay, well, and one of the first things I did when I started was I did something called a listening tour, where I went around and met with various departments, and not just academic departments, our athletics department, our events department, the people that run our facilities, to try to understand all of the facets. And because to your point, it's an incredibly complex organization. You have students, but then you have athletes, you have donors, you have faculty, you have staff, you have community, you have government relations, you have a myriad of people and agendas, and that's not even going into our research. So there was a period, and I'm still learning, going back to lifetime learning, I'm still learning about various facets and trying to be open-minded. The biggest gap, I think, from a corporate standpoint, things are usually run from the top down. The CEO makes his or her decisions, and that funnels down. In a university, there's something called shared governance, where everybody on campus has a voice that helps shape the university. And so while I have an idea of the decision I want to make, I need to make sure that everybody has a voice and a chance to share their input, which sometimes makes me realize the decision I made was hoping to make was right. And that strengthens my conviction in it. And sometimes makes me realize I need to pivot, and I learned something new, and maybe the way I was going to go was not the right way for the university. So that was a big learning curve for me. Mm-hmm. But one that I'm now, it'll be 2 years this spring. So one that I think I'd like to think I have adapted to pretty well.
Excellent. You mentioned many different aspects of it, many different categories: students, faculty, donors, staff. The list goes. Research, athletes. The list is long. How would you engender the feelings of support and how to build authority without relying on your position, on hierarchy?
I think you have to be authentic. I think you have to, I have to recognize that while people come to me with compliments and often criticism or input, mm-hmm. I have to understand the place where they're coming from. And I think being, empathetic and understanding that they're coming with their concerns because they care about the institution. And I try to incorporate that mindset into all of those various personalities and people and agendas, ideas, all of those things that I continually work through daily. But again, getting back to my point about the team, the people that are closest to me, many of whom have been here for a long time, went to school here, have had various roles here. They give me a perspective that helps open my eyes and that helps kind of broaden my vision or the landscape of what I'm looking at as we forge forward.
It sounds somehow easy or you just talk and you just listen. But one of the hardest aspects of leadership relies on the fact that sometimes people don't want to be led.
Right.
Faculty, in particular, they are highly educated, they are independent, and sometimes because they know what they're doing and it's working, or they think it's working, they're skeptical of change. They're skeptical of this leadership, of someone telling them, maybe you think this is best, but it's not overall what is best. How do you navigate that?
I think that, our faculty here, while I said they have conviction and they believe in their mission, I think equally there's a respect for the office of being president. And they recognize that the board has entrusted me with that decision-making authority. I try to be open. I meet with all of our shared governance leaders regularly, who are the voice for their particular constituencies. I try to also, when I go to events, I try to go around the room. I try to be very approachable. I try to listen. I try to take in all of the various input or opinions or viewpoints that I'm getting. But I think at the end of the day, there is a recognition that I am the president, and that's whether they like me or not, there's still respect for the office and for the authority. And I do, as a leader, you take all of that into account when you're making a decision. But I think people respond to people. I think people respond well to people who are sure of what they want. And once I have really taken the time to absorb all of the information and all of the data that I can on a particular decision, that once I make it, I'm committed to it and I'm sure of what I want. And I think that not being wishy-washy and showing that belief does instill confidence and inspiration in people. And that's what I try to do.
Try to do the best and being respected by the person and mainly by the position, and having a very friendly community of those that work either for you or in departments that will report to you. What has been an unpopular decision you've made? And how did you navigate the pushback? Because even though they all accept it, not necessarily they agree with it. How did you navigate this pushback?
It's difficult. There's any decision you make, like last week, we had a number of very cold days. And so it's ultimately my decision if we open or close, and if that means being remote for classes or not. And I get, so a couple days I made a decision to close, and I get equal emails from people saying thank you, and some saying, why did you close? I'm going to now miss my lab, and it's fine out. It's not that bad. And, so you realize that, we have over 15,000 students and a couple thousand employees, and then, 180,000 alumni. And so you have tens of thousands of people who have an interest in the decisions that I make. And regardless of what they are, no leader gets 100% buy-in on any decision.
Yes.
I could say today is Tuesday and it might annoy some people, even though it is Tuesday. You realize that, and you have to be thick-skinned and recognize that you're going to take some criticism. And sure, it might be unfair. But nobody ever said life was fair, as you know. But I try to just say, I appreciate the input. I am making the best decisions I can with the information I'm given. I did make some decisions to sell some real estate. Our footprint here is bigger than we need. It was getting costly from an operational standpoint to keep some buildings. And those decisions were incredibly popular with some people and incredibly disappointing to other people. But whether it was popular or disappointing, they were decisions I made with information that, not everybody would have in front of them. I try not to be overly defensive, and I try not to also take the compliments and let it swell my ego too much. I try to just keep a very balanced approach, that I make the decisions that I feel in my heart are the best for the longevity and stability of the university with the information I have in front of me at that time.
Being a president, you're there. Do you have someone you reach out to, a mentor or someone just to not validate, but to say, you know what, it's follow your feeling because you're on the right direction, or absolutely not? It's you decide with the information you have, and you talk to everybody that's organizing all that information for you, and then you just follow your heart? Or do you rely on support?
Oh, yeah, I definitely rely
From
on
someone?
support. I definitely rely on support. So, obviously, while they're not mentors, my leadership team around me, for sure. On a mentor side, I'm very, we have a board of trustees of 9 people that are appointed by the governor, that oversee kind of the fiscal operations.
Okay.
Every university in the state has a board. And I'm very close with our board chairperson, Mike Saxon, who is a very successful, incredibly successful business person, and has run complex international organizations. And I'll look. I do look at him as a mentor because we like each other as people. We trust each other as good people. He's been successful in navigating complex issues for a company. He's an alum from here. He loves the university. He has the same passion for the university and our tradition. And so we're so aligned that way. And I'm so blessed that he's in that role, because, not only is he chairperson, he's an alum, and I trust and respect him, and I would say that I lean on him when I need a mentor.
Excellent. You mentioned 180,000 alumni. How would you say this mentality of giving back to the community is an important thing? And how do you make sure that there's not 180,000, this is impossible, but they realize that it was a life-changing opportunity they had, and somehow they have to make sure that others experience that?
We're lucky. We have alumni that are incredibly passionate about how the university changed their lives. And we have some really engaged alumni, not just locally, but even when I've traveled and met with, from coast to coast, some of our alumni, men and women who are in incredibly important positions in their careers, whether it's in business or arts or medicine or law, whatever it is, the sciences. They're excited that they went to the university. Our student base here are here to work. They come here with a plan. They come here with a goal. Our students are focused. That's the type of student we attract. And so and I think our students now find inspiration in seeing the roles that some of these men and women that came before them and came through the university, walk these hallways, what they've accomplished. My hope is that people just share that narrative, share their experience, share what they were able to do and to launch or to grow or to create or to experience because they got their start here at the University of Akron. So we try to, be as connected as we can with our alumni. We host events all over the country. We try to keep them engaged. I try to invite as many of them back. I try to mix our current students with the history, the students that have come through here. And I think there's a genuine passion and excitement when you share that you're all, as we say, zips, our mascot. So I think that I just try to be, and I'm a product of that. I went to both undergrad and grad school, with law school here, and it's special to me because my office now is the building next to the building where I went to where I went to business school. Our business building has since been built, and the building that exists now for business was not here when I was here. So I walk by where I went to school decades ago under the same big trees that I did when I was 19. And that's a very, very special feeling. I would have never thought, my 19-year-old self would have never thought that I would be back here as president.
As the 19th president.
All right, exactly. There you go. Thank you.
Back to the university part of it, because we shifted a little bit to the person and to the students. When you think of universities in the past, they mainly had to be academically credible. Nowadays, and thinking of a living organization, not only you have to be academically credible, you have to be financially sustainable, you have to be socially relevant, and we are the proof, you have to be globally attractive. Out of those, which of these tensions do you think is hardest to balance?
Oh my goodness, that's a tough one. I think we're relevant. We certainly have a curriculum, and we're constantly looking at what degrees can we offer that are going to be meaningful. Like in our College of Business, we launched a degree in information systems and artificial intelligence because we see that as the next frontier. We had launched a sports analytics program when I was dean because there's only 3 other universities that offer it. We have a nurse anesthetist program that is world class. Our engineering, our polymers is number 1 in the world. So I think we've established the relevancy, this is where you want to invest for your future, the global scale. And you'll know this, Luísa, you run a company. Financial stability is tricky. Things are expensive. It's expensive to run. I have 8 million square feet of buildings. Thousands of people work here. So it's expensive to operate that scale of a business. Our source of revenue is tuition and donor dollars. We get some help from the state, but not as much as we used to. So balancing that, because I want to be the best affordable option for our students, whether they're from the state or from this country or from the globe. I want it to be realistic and accessible. So balancing what you can charge and what it really costs to then deliver is tricky. I think that's probably, and on top of that, the competition is keen, and in the U.S., the birth rate has changed, so there's less people that are coming. So you have less people, but the same amount of cost to operate. That's hard. So I think that's probably, of all of the things you mentioned, all of the different things I consider in this role, that's a tough one to balance, that we are continually looking for, like I said, the best, we want to offer the best product we can at the best price we can.
In the past, maybe the focus was not only, but the student itself. So you have great content, you have students, and this is it. Do you think the financial side of it has taken a larger pressure on it? Because now you have tuition, you have donors, you have less support from the government, but you still have to be profitable, maybe in a way that more than you had in the past. Would you agree with that?
Yes, but our student experience, that is our number one priority.
Okay.
Because that's who we are. And, it doesn't matter, it doesn't really matter. The finances don't come into play if you don't have students that want to come here and feel at home, feel welcome, feel empowered, feel motivated and inspired and excited and challenged. If you can't offer that, it doesn't really matter how much money you have in the bank or how little or much you charge. The students are at the heart of everything we do on this campus, whether it's my job or somebody who works in custodial services, a faculty member, an administrator, somebody who works in the student union, somebody who serves food, somebody who works in athletics, somebody who works in housing. I can go on and on. Everybody focuses on what is that experience going to be like for that student? Is that going to make them want to feel, does that make them proud and excited to be here and to tell his or her friends, I go to the University of Akron and I love it? Because there's not, and you'll know this, Luísa, there's not going to be any better advertisement, any better sort of business
propaganda
grower, than a satisfied student.
Yes.
And they are at the heart of everything we do.
What would you say is the main metrics you rely on? The enrollment or
enrollment? Yeah, well, enrollment and
levels?
Retention.
Okay.
Because even if you enroll a lot, if they drop out after a semester or a year, it becomes a concern. Both of our numbers are trending in the right direction. We could put out surveys, but the reality is you don't get a lot of responses back. But seeing classrooms full, having to add class sections, seeing applications go up, seeing retention numbers go up. Those are the things that we look to that are telling us, okay, this is going in the right direction. And if you see something that's dropping, if you say, oh my goodness, we're shrinking in this particular major, but our competitors are growing, why?
Why?
And what should we be doing? What should we be augmenting? What should we be changing to show that we're still the right place for these people?
Coming from a very successful career outside the university world, what do you think universities should learn from the corporate world and should never try to imitate it?
Well, I think it goes back to one of the first questions you asked, Luísa, is that, in corporate America, it's dynamic. You recognize that you have to change to be competitive. You recognize that you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again when the world changes around you and still have a positive result. So I think, and again, I think we recognize it here. I don't know if other universities do or not, but I think that maybe universities are known as being very wedded to tradition or to keeping the status quo. And in particular, certainly the world changed quite a bit with the internet and online learning. We have a new frontier with AI, a huge frontier that has changed even in the past couple of years when we first started hearing about it. I mean, it's everywhere now. It's not going to get smaller. We're going to have to figure out how to live with it, much like we did with the internet, because I think the internet for people was scary when it first came out.
Absolutely.
But now it's part of our lives. So, recognizing that and saying, okay, this is here. It's not going to evaporate. What do we do? How do we do it to be a place that, again, gives value to our students, gives experience to our students, and helps our students understand that regardless of their career path, this is a place that trains them to thrive in the future. I think that sort of embracing that change and being proactive is something that universities can learn from business.
That is great because it's heading towards my next question, because we talked about your path. We talked about universities being a complex organization. We talked about being a leader and leading those that not necessarily want to be led. We're talking about universities as a living organization. And I was going to mention, what about the future? So we talked about AI, which you related You talked about internet and AI and the changes. How do you think 20 years from now, what type of institutions will still be standing?
Oh, my goodness. 20 years from now. I don't think I'll still be here.
But yes, you will. Maybe not at
Let's hope not.
present, but around.
Right, yeah, thank you. I think they're going to have to be places that that help people grow. I think, we all want to grow. We all should want to grow. What that growth looks like or how that growth takes form, I don't know as I sit here today. But what I do know is if you're a place that, a lot of times people ask me, how did you know, when you were starting your company, how did you know it would make it? I didn't. Well, then how did you know not to close? And I said, I think the hardest decision a person makes in his or her life is when to walk away from something, whether it's a business idea or a job or perhaps a relationship. It's hard to know when to walk away. And what I've decided in my life is that you generally should maybe walk away from things if they stop growing you, or worse yet, if they inhibit your growth. So I think 20 years from now, the institutions that will be standing will be those that propel growth, those that offer, enable, strengthen, inspire. Because regardless of what the next frontier is, whether it's AI or something that hasn't even been invented yet, we as people should always want to grow, should always be challenged and inspired and encouraged to grow. And I think that the institutions that offer that vision and that path, those will be the ones that are standing and thriving 20 years from now and 100 years from now.
With more companies recruiting employees that don't necessarily have a degree, do you think that the degree itself will remain the core value proposition of higher education?
Yes, because while I still think that there are some jobs that are very good career paths that don't necessarily require a degree, and I think I've probably said this, Luísa, when I've talked to some of your classes here, I always equate it to a toolbox. We all kind of walk around with this imaginary toolbox, and you can build things based on what's in your toolbox. And education gives you more tools, allows you to build. Maybe you have a toolbox that allows you to build things out of wood, but maybe I have something in my toolbox that enables me to build things out of glass and plastic and metal and fabric and all sorts of other materials. I'm going to be able to be more adaptable and have more opportunities. That's never going to change. So I think while, like I said, and I've talked to some students that'll say, well, I'm really interested in trade. I want to have my own plumbing business, so I don't need to go to higher ed. And I said, okay, well, let's make believe you start a plumbing business. How will you understand how to read your financials? How will you understand how to market? How will you understand how to say, well, now I have one location, but I really want 10. How will you understand how to scale? So being able to add that education to your toolbox only helps. And I think with your students that are here, your students that are inspired to go to your program, like I said at the beginning of our interview, they're accomplished men and women already. They already have a pretty decent sized toolbox. They're going to even leave with more tools that enable them to go back to where they currently work and be a better employee or coworker or leader or partner or whatever they are, but then also perhaps to do even more than they realized they could, because they've gained those tools through you and through the experience they have with your offering. So I'm a firm believer in education.
I'm glad, because I'm too. But it's important to see. You mentioned the toolbox. If you were to share a vision and a strategic vision that could be put in place today that would ensure the continuity of the universities, of the contemporary universities as we know, what would you say it is?
It's hard to say because we don't know what is coming next or what careers will evolve and which will become irrelevant. It's really got to be to really have continuity. You need to have leadership and a culture that is curious, that is adaptable, that is open-minded, that looks for what, like I shared with you, we started a degree in information systems and AI, because of those attributes, because of saying, okay, this is curious, this is next, this is something that is going to be very relevant to the students today, to the teenagers and 20-somethings. I think that having that sort of culture, that mindset, embracing that reality, is very, very important.
Excellent, RJ. Heading towards the end of our conversation, when we talk about leading a university, ultimately means that you're leading people, you're leading ideas, and legacy, and all of that at the same time. If you were to give an advice to leaders how to step into this role, this position that comes from a culture that's far older than you, and if you were to wish something that people would understand more about your position, what would it be? So 2 different things. Advice to those who step into a role that's got a culture that's far older and wish they knew more about it, your position.
I'll answer the second one first. I wish they knew more of all of the decisions I make that have what we call a ripple effect. People a lot of times don't realize, they may say, oh, I really don't understand why we have this particular offering or investment or building or whatever it happens to be. Why do we spend money on that? Why is that something that you think we need? Because they're looking at it from their own viewpoint, not how it affects many others. There's no real decision I can make that doesn't have a positive and resulting negative effect, based on who the person is here at the university, or as a stakeholder. And I wish that people sometimes could understand that I have to when I make a decision, it's based on so many variables, not just the one priority that a particular person views on that decision. So I wish they understood that about the role. In terms of what I would tell a leader of a university or a complex organization or even a small organization, I think it's the same advice. When I was a sports agent and had my own agency, I would often get asked, who's your favorite client? And my answer was always the one sitting across from me. Because I have a very firm belief that you have to, as a leader, you have to let people know that they matter to you. Whether the person is a current employee, prospective, a student, a parent of a student, friend of a student, prospective student, a donor, I can go on and on. If they feel that they have a voice with you, that they matter to you, even if you make a decision or go in a direction that he or she disagrees with, that person will at least feel heard. And I think at the end of the day, we all want to feel a bit heard. We all want to feel a bit understood. We all want to feel a bit considered. And I don't always succeed at that, Luísa, but I really, really try to remember it in every conversation that I have in every day.
That is fantastic. And to end, as we are approaching the 8th year anniversary of our partnership and almost 3,000 students coming to our programs here in Akron, what would you say to those that are not sure they should come, they should do this, they should pursue this other level of education that we can offer here?
Well, I just think it's going to be, it's not only going to be educational, it's going to be transformational, because you're going to not only learn things in the classroom, you're going to learn things about yourself. You're going to learn things from your other colleagues. You're going to hear about stories and paths and journeys, some of which will have been much easier than the one you may have taken, some of which are going to be incredibly more difficult. And you're going to learn from those people around you. I love talking when the students would come, because I had the opportunity when I was dean. The first year, I just went to the kind of graduation ceremony. The years after that, I would go welcome them, and then I would be at the ceremony at the end. And even in those short snippets, seeing how the students changed, seeing how the excitement, the energy, the enthusiasm, the hope, the motivation, it's such an incredible privilege to be a part of. And I would encourage, it's going to be scary. It's going to be new. It's going to be unfamiliar, but you're not going to grow when you stay in a comfort zone. So this opportunity allows you to go out of your comfort zone in a safe, structured, thoughtful, challenging, exciting environment that's going to make you a person that you may not have known is already inside of you. And I've seen it time and time again when I've been lucky enough to participate in activities with our partnership. So I encourage all of you listening or watching to take that step, to take that leap. I can assure you, you will never regret it.
Thank you, RJ.
Thank you for having me.
We've known each other for quite a while. Every time I have the opportunity to talk to you, it's so inspirational. I'm extremely honored. Thank you for taking the time to be here on our podcast. It's been amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And come see us at the University of Akron. We look forward to welcoming you.
Stay tuned. There's more to come. Thank you.